Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Leeds. I am so thankful that I get a chance to come out here. One, to escape the gnarly heat in St. George right now that we're experiencing. It got up to, I think, 104 yesterday. I walked out of my backyard and I felt like I just basically opened up the oven door. So it's great to be here. I have a beautiful wife back home in St. George, and I've got two kids that are grown adults, one who just turned 21 on Friday, and another that just got married in October. She's 28, and they both live in North Carolina, where we spent 13 years of our lives raising our kids, and they said, "This is home, we're going to stay here." So I miss them tremendously every day. I miss them, but I'm glad that they're kind of doing their own thing and then in their own life. And I'm thankful for these little devices that we have called cell phones. The fact that I can FaceTime with them and make connection is so great. But I want to take a little bit of a bite on the cell phone interaction, the social media interaction, our digital devices interaction. I got my first phone when I think I was 19 in 1995. It was a Nokia 232. It was awesome, right? And I got it because it was a buy one, get one. And so I've got a younger brother and a younger sister, and I told my brother, who was 17 at the time, I was like, "Bro, we got cell phones, dude." He was pumped. He was so pumped. And back then, the rates were based differently, right? If you remember back then, from 7 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, you paid. You paid a lot. But then from 9 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, you didn't have to pay. It was free. And so I thought it was super cool. I thought, man, I'm going to call all my friends. I'm on the highway. I'm driving down the 91 in Southern California in my Volkswagen bus. I'm like, yeah, I'm on my phone right now. And then my brother and I got our first bill, and guess who was footing the bill? This guy right here. I think it was in the amount of almost $700. Yeah, that was my paycheck basically for the month. It was gone. And I realized all that was a cool distraction, and it was something to pass the time, to play a few games or maybe text a friend. And I started doing that more after 9 o'clock. I was like, I'm not going to call you till 9, bro. But looking back now, I can see that it actually was my first encounter with something that would begin shaping how I live, how I think, and how I spend my time. Without realizing it, I was handing over influence to something that would quietly become my new master in my life. And when I eventually upgraded to a smartphone, it was like I was hooked almost instantaneously. You see, the ability to be reached anytime, anywhere, for anything, it gave me this strange sense of importance. And I'm sure many of you have felt that way. But the constant connection came at a cost. One I didn't even recognize until much later. These days, as I was preparing for this message, I was like, I wonder how much time I spend on my phone, social media platforms. I wonder how much time I spend. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, dang, that's a lot. And for me, it was a lot. It's on the average 2 hours a day. And it was kind of jarring for me that I was like, 2 hours? Like, it seemed like 30 seconds, right? 2 hours? How could that even happen? It was so jarring, but yet disappointing at the same time, because it made me realize how much I trade the present life through scrolling through the digital one. And what started as a tool to connect has slowly taken control, shaping my heart, my habits, as well as my relationships. What I once thought was just this harmless distraction, it's revealed to me something so much deeper, because it's not about screen time. It's about lordship. Something else quietly started ruling my time, and I didn't even see it coming. I didn't even see it coming. Digital media, it doesn't just distract us, it disciples us. Let me say that again. Digital media doesn't just distract us, it actually disciples us. It forms habits, it rewires our attention, it accelerates our pace, it flattens our depth, and it pulls us away from a slow, rooted, relational life with Jesus. When we live our lives through mediating technologies, we trade presence for performance, we trade depth for distraction, and soul work for scrolling, capturing moments without actually truly living them. And like I said before, this isn't about screen times on our phones, it's about lordship. Today, like Ben had mentioned, we start this new series. It's 3 weeks long. It's called the Digital Detox. This is more than a series for our church. It's actually a season that we're going to go through, and I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by that by the end of today's sermon. You see, the series, it invites us to pause and ask with intention, whose disciples are we becoming? And that's a great question. Whose disciples are we becoming? It's a sacred chance to quiet the noise, to turn down distraction and turn up devotion and delight to the one who really, truly calls us his own. Church, make no mistake, we're all being discipled, but the question is, by whom or even by what? Here's something I'd like us to chew on just for a little bit. C.S. Lewis said this about disciple making. The church exists for nothing else but to draw men and women into Christ, to make them little Christs. If they're not doing that, all the cathedrals, the clergy, the missions, the sermons, even the Bible itself is simply a waste of time. Because God, he became man for no other reason. And I love what he says. It's to draw men and women to Christ. That's what discipleship is about. While digital discipleship may feel like this modern wave that's been surging and surging over the last 30 years, there's been these rival patterns that have discipled us and have always existed. The medium, it may have changed, but the battle for our spiritual formation, it's as old as humanity itself. And we see Paul address this in the book of Romans. If you have your Bibles, I would love for you to turn to Romans chapter 12. And we see what Paul starts to unpack just a little bit in verse 2. He says this, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, his pleasing, perfect will." You see, you're either a disciple of culture or you're a disciple of Christ. And it could be said that the smartphone will conform us, it'll disciple us to this world faster with more lasting power than any other thing, shaping our thoughts, our patterns, and our pace. Romans 12 doesn't just warn us against being conformed, it invites us into transformation through Christ. Did you guys get that? It doesn't just warn us about being conformed, it invites us into transformation through Christ. But the real question again is if we're being discipled, it's not if we're being discipled, it's rather by whom, or more urgently, by what? So, have you ever heard of this term, the Great Rewiring? There's this really amazing book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and we see stats around the digital world. It's not just a social media thing, it's an all media thing, but it's very much connected to the invention of social media and the iPhone around 2009. And I've got some of these stats on the screen behind me if you guys want to take a look at the graphs, and I'll kind of walk us through what we're actually seeing. In the first graph, it clearly shows a rise in major depression in teens from the ages of 12 to 17, beginning around 2012 and then continuing into 2020. And it actually takes a really big spike. But what's striking is how much more the increase has affected teen girls compared to boys. It's not just numbers on a chart. Guys, it's real lives. It's real struggles and a signal to something that has been shifting in the world of our teens that are growing up in it. And as we look at the next two graphs, we see the rise in anxiety, depression, and mental health issues overall. And it's nearly at the same pace. And these patterns, they're not random. They're telling us something so important. They show a growing mental health crisis among young people, and it's happening right in front of us. And some of you in this room may be in the midst of experiencing it with either your spouse or even your children. And so this is just gripping you at the heart. But what do we do with this? What do we do with this? These graphs, they're not just data points. They're a call to be aware. They're a call to ask better questions and make space for deeper conversations. They urge us to understand what today's teens are facing and how we can support them in meaningful ways. And here's what psychologist Jonathan Haidt has to say about it. He says, between 2010 and 2015, the social lives of American teens moved largely onto smartphones with continuous access to social media, online video games, and other internet-based activities. This great rewiring of childhood, I argue, is the single largest reason for the tidal wave of adolescent mental illness that began early in 2010. In other words, the first generation of teens to go through puberty with smartphones in hand also became the most anxious, depressed, self-harming, as well as suicidal on record. I mean, let that just set in for a second. It's crazy how much that's transformed our lives and our thinking. We know them as Gen Z, and their struggle with mental health has become a defining part of their story. Now, I'm not suggesting in this digital fast, we're not suggesting in this digital fast that we make our church completely Amish at this point, right? This isn't about rejecting all technology. What I'm saying is that if we're serious enough about following Jesus, then we have to get honest about anything in our lives that's acting as a master besides him. Yes, smartphones and social media, they can be helpful, even good. Again, that's not the issue, but rather, are they forming us more than Jesus is? To the city of Corinth, Paul said this in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. He says, and this is speaking on sexual immorality at the time that Paul's addressing, but it's a cultural shift. It's a cultural change that people are being impacted around them and by, and I think it applies to us with this as well. I have the right to do anything, he says, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Things that are beneficial, they give. Things that are helpful, they serve you. But masters, they take from you, right? Or more simply put, masters take while tools give. Friends, your device is taking more than it's giving, and we should be asking that question, is it really? If so, it may be more of a master than a beneficial tool. It takes our time, it takes our joy, it takes our attention, it takes our energy, and it robs us of peace because that algorithm, it exploits you. It knows how to lead you and therefore disciples you as your master. It's taking our mental health, it's taking our social health, and it's taking our spiritual health. It exploits you based on what you like as well as your weaknesses. And what's scary is we know the algorithm is out to take more from us. And if you're like me, we can easily spot it in others. How many of you guys have flown on the plane in the last couple of years? Okay. You guys have all noticed, you get on the plane, you're getting settled in. People are kind of bumping you if you're in the aisle, you know, and you're getting settled in, and then you kind of do this like sideways shift. And you're like, I wonder what that dude's watching in front of me, right? Kind of eavesdropping. Pastor Eric likes to call it eye dropping, right? So quick show of hands. How many of you guys are doing that? Kind of, man, you guys are all liars. I know you all are doing it. It's okay. You guys can hold on to your secrets. That's totally fine. But the guy in front of you is watching workout clips, dad jokes, and then he moves on to a quick craft tutorial on how to make cocktails, or maybe the next Sailing with Phoenix post is popping up. Honestly, I just described myself. But yet, we all judge him for binging digital junk food. But the truth is that same algorithm is wired to pull us in as well. And I still fall for it over and over and over again. But in contrast, right? You sit down and there's this dude that's right next to you, and he doesn't have a phone. He doesn't have headphones. He doesn't even have a book. And the dude's like locked, just looking straight at the wall in front of him. And my brain goes, this is kind of weird. Right? Because this is why it's weird. It's strange because they're not on their phones. But what's really strange is all of us on our phones. But let me flip that. We often think what's strange is not people on their phones. It's the people that are not on their phones. And the point I'm trying to make is that we shouldn't be judging others. We need to be evaluating ourselves. So the question that we arrive at, is that phone taking more than it's giving? For the vast majority of American culture, the answer is actually yes. And before you guys think that I'm calling out on Gen Z and young kids, no one in this room, myself included, is off the hook, because I see it all the time. We're at a game and a dad's glued to his phone thinking just being there is enough. And meanwhile, the kid's scanning the stands hoping that someone saw his greatest play, but the dad missed it. I've been that dad. At the school recital, the grandparents are focused more on getting the perfect video than actually experiencing the moment. But here's the thing, our kids aren't craving to be captured. They're actually longing to be noticed. They want our eyes more than the camera lens. They want our presence more than our posts. And we tell ourselves we're present because we hit record. But presence, it's not measured in footage. It's felt in attention. Sometimes what they need most isn't a memory saved to the cloud, but a moment shared in real time, heart to heart, undistracted, fully there. There's this study, and it's called the still face test. It shows what happens when a parent goes emotionally blank for 60 seconds. And the baby that's in front of them tries to connect, and when the connection's not made, the baby actually cracks. And that's what our phones are doing to our families. We're physically there, but emotionally still-faced. And church, it's discipling the next generation into disconnection. And if that doesn't sober us, I don't know what will. Now, again, it's not a slam on all digital content and chucking our phones into the trash. In fact, next week we're going to be talking about the shift that we can make in seeing our devices in tools, not treasure. So make sure that you're here next week for that. But I believe there's a deeply rooted spiritual cause behind all of this. And to understand it, we need to go back to the garden. And this isn't in your notes, but if you want to look it up later, it's Genesis chapter 3. And here we see this unpacking of the fall. And we see Satan at work behind the scenes with Adam and Eve. Verse 4 through 5 says this: "You will certainly not die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God." Did you catch that? You'll be like God, knowing good and evil. The key lie that that Satan fed to Adam and Eve was that they could be like God, having the attributes of God. On your screen, some of these attributes are there. Our phones, they give us this illusion of omniscience, right? So that's knowing all things. They give us this idea of omnipresence, being everywhere. And they also give us this thought of omnipotence, controlling everything. Smartphones, they mimic the attributes of God. So it's no surprise when we're tempted to treat them as worthy of our devotion. Google's mission statement alone says this: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Guys, this isn't a job for Google or for us. It's a job for the divine, not us. You see, we weren't created like God. We were created in the image of God. Only He is all-knowing. Only He is all-powerful. And only He is present everywhere at once. Social media wants to give you every problem everywhere because you don't have the power to do anything about it. You start to feel anxious and helpless. But we weren't designed for that. And it's absolutely crushing us. The thief, who is Satan, is doing exactly what Jesus warned us about in John 10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. Jesus, he's drawing this line between the one who takes life and the one who gives it abundantly. But following King Jesus, it leads to real life, one that's full, one that's vibrant, and one that's whole. And in Romans 12, which we looked at earlier, we're reminded of God's will. And it isn't just right, it's actually good for us because God himself is completely good. There's no darkness, no hidden agenda, just goodness through and through. And that's not something that we can say about the people designing the apps or curating our news feeds that we get sucked into. Their goals aren't always aligned for what's best for us, but God's will, it is. It's best for our growth, for the people that we impact, and ultimately for His glory. Church, the beautiful part is God's will isn't just good, it's pleasing to Him. And it's also pleasing to us. You see, living in step with Jesus brings a kind of joy and peace we can't find anywhere else. God's will is perfect for how He made you. He knows what it means to live life to the fullest, and He's offering a way for you to step in to that kind of life starting now. To do this, we need to lean into this statement. And it goes like this: collective action problems call for collective action solutions. Collective action problems call for collective action solutions. I had to say that over and over again because I was getting tongue-tied. The church isn't just a few people on stage or adults in charge. It's actually all of us, right? This building is not the church. It's all of us gathered together. It's all of us as we leave this place and we go into our families and we go into our workplaces and we go and have coffee with our friends if you're into that. We are the church represented wherever we go when we gather together. God didn't design us just to sit on the sidelines. We're all part of His team, and every player matters. The kingdom of God, it grows when this happens. When we show up, when we step in, when we serve, as well as when we sacrifice together. And you're probably thinking of the question, well, what does that mean, Aaron? And I'm glad that you're asking that question. We sacrifice together through sometimes our finances, but we also sacrifice through a fast. And we have this fast that we want to encourage you guys in. It's a digital detox challenge. It's a spiritual fast for the digital age. And if you have your bulletin, there's a QR code on there that you can see, you can use, and you can sign up for this fast. This challenge was designed to help us to refocus our attention on the one who is truly omni, all present, all knowing, and all powerful, and rediscover the peace that comes from being in a real relationship with Jesus. It's an opportunity for you to take back your energy, your focus, and your attention and redirect it towards things that actually give life. And one of the best ways you can evaluate on how deeply you're being shaped by this digital world is actually to step away from it for a time, before you go back into it. When it comes to social media and screen time, sometimes the only way to know how much it's actually discipling you is actually to go without it for a time. That's what this digital detox is all about. And again, if I didn't say it enough before, you can sign up for it on your app and join us in this. It's a way to step into a more intentional rhythm of life, choosing what's better even when it's not popular. Psalm 119 encourages us in this way and says to turn our eyes from worthless things, exposing the hidden places where darkness has crept in. Listen, again, we're not anti-technology. We're not telling you to take your phones and chuck them in the trash or get rid of your responsibilities or even ignore your relationships. We're simply inviting you to take one clear step towards being discipled by Jesus instead of being shaped by the culture around us. Now I can tell some of you in here, all of a sudden when I mention, oh, we're going to have a fast and we're going to kind of set our phones aside, there's this FOMO happening, right? Some of you are just like, oh God, what if JOMO sets in, right? The joy of missing out, right? Listen, I didn't come up with that. I'm just repeating something. I thought it was brilliant when I heard it. I just want to share it with you guys because I'm just excited about that. The joy of missing out on mind-numbing videos, people hurting themselves for a laugh, or some science experiment gone wrong. Listen, you'll miss out, and it's going to be awesome. We think this will improve your mental health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. Because dopamine, that little spark of joy and satisfaction that you get, God actually wired that into our brains. It was His idea to begin with, a gift that was meant to delight us in what's good and meaningful. Think about that for a moment, to delight in what's good and meaningful. But here's the thing, constant screen time can overload those receptors, making real life feel very dull by comparison. Studies have actually shown that it takes about 20 days for those dopamine receptors to reset, to start firing again in response to real moments, not just digital ones. That's why this digital fast, it isn't about giving something up. It's about giving your soul space to reset so you can start enjoying the life that God actually meant for you. And parents, if there's parents in this room, we want to invite you to partner with your children in this as well, as if they have a phone. Jonathan Haidt points out something we all feel deep down, that today many of us tend to overprotect our kids in the physical world while unintentionally underprotecting them in the digital one. Now, hear this. You might bring it up to your kids and go, hey, we're going to fast our phones for 12 days, no digital content, and guarantee their response back to you is going to be something along the lines of, you're kidding me, right? Like, I got to do this on my own. That's not fair. Look at all my friends with their phones, right? Turn that around, because it's real what they're feeling, but you can help to reshape their mindsets on how they can do this with other people. They can invite their friends along on this journey. They can say, hey, this isn't a rule. It's a shared journey. It's a shared experience in reshaping our minds. It's not a restriction. It's about reconnection. So let's do this together, church. If digital media feels like an addiction for some of you, detoxing on your own is almost impossible, just like with any other habit or substance. We weren't made to do this alone. We were created for community and accountability. That's why this fast is 12 days. And again, you can sign up on your app and join us. If I hadn't said that before, I'm going to say it again. But we wanted to give you guys some more information to equip you if you want to dive a little bit deeper. On the screen behind me, there's some resources. One is How to Break Up with Your Smartphone by Catherine Ann Price. The Digital Fast by Darren Whitehead. The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. And there's another one that I started reading through called 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You by Tony Renke. Today I want to wrap up today's message in a unique way. So I would love for you guys to join me. Go ahead and stand up where you're at. And then grab that little thing that's either in your back pocket, in your purse, in your front pocket. And I want you to take it, and I want you to place it face down either on the seat or on the floor in front of you. Now, I need to hear this, right? So we're silent for a moment. I want you guys just to breathe in and then breathe out. We're going to sit there. And some of you may feel that subtle pull, that itch to pick it back up, just for a second. But I want you guys to notice the thoughts and the feelings that are going on inside of you. Some it may be anxiety, some it may be curiosity, some it may be just discomfort. But then I want you to ask yourself this question: how long can I leave this thing? How long? What if we were in here all day? Would I be able to resist? Other than work, would I be able to resist grabbing that phone and doom scrolling, picking it up, checking in? Again, we spend so much of our lives tethered to these devices, reacting, scrolling, responding, that sometimes we forget what it's like just to be. We forget that. To be present or look someone in the eye. Just locking with them. And that feeling, not just to hear, but to actually listen and be present in that moment, to exist without needing to broadcast. So as we close today, I want you to remember this moment, this simple act of choosing presence over distraction, because sometimes the most powerful thing that you can do is actually nothing at all. Amen? You guys can have a seat.